You're listening to Play Therapy Community Podcast, episode 65.
Welcome to Play Therapy Community Podcast, providing connection, information, and inspiration to child therapists all around the world. Here's your host, a licensed psychotherapist, a registered play therapist, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
This episode is brought to you by Jackie Flynn Consulting. I provide consultation to EMDR therapists seeking support with challenging cases, desiring to hone their skills, or working towards certification. As a registered play therapist and an EMDR consultant in training, helping clinicians that work with children and adolescents is at the heart of my work. If you're already trained in EMDR therapy and you'd like some consultation support on how to use it best with kids, or specifically how to integrate it with play therapy techniques while still holding true to all 8 phases of EMDR with fidelity, go to my website, Jackie Flynn Consulting, to schedule an appointment. I have a free download of a body scan PDF that I use with my child clients when we target somatic sensations in the body. You can find that at JackieFlynnConsulting.com as well. Now back to our episode. Hi there, Jackie Flynn here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Play Therapy Community Podcast. Well, at the time of this recording, it is nearing the end of October. My daughter and I are getting ready to go visit my sister in Illinois, and the weather's starting to get a little cooler. Hopefully the hurricanes are behind us. The Hurricane Irma really was something in this area, not as bad as in other areas, but it's nice outside. So I hope wherever you are that it is nice too right now. Well, today I want to share with you some information that comes to us from the Gottman Institute. I'm a therapist that practices Gottman method couples therapy. It is fantastic. It's based on decades of research where at the Gottman Institute, they created this love lab at like all these apartments, and they brought in these couples and they recorded them and they took their blood. They were like for physiological study of it, and they took their pulse rates and just let them live in these love lab apartments together, and they studied the interactions that they had. And they followed many of these couples in a longitudinal study, which I'm sure I didn't say that correctly. They studied these couples for years and years, and they really got a good feel for what makes a relationship work and what doesn't. Actually, they can, with a certain amount of accuracy, predict whether a relationship's going to end. So what this data is providing to us is what areas of relationship needs to be looked at, especially if a couple's struggling. When I work with couples, I start off with the Gottman Institute's relationship checkup, and it's just an assessment that each couple gets on their own in a link through the email, and they respond to, it takes them about, my couple say about 45 minutes, some people a little bit longer, some people shorter, but they respond to a series of questions. And then when they both complete that relationship checkup, then I get the report. So whatever they say in there is confidential, so they can feel free to respond in a way that is honest, so we can really be working off of honest information. But it's confidential in terms of their individual responses, but when they meet with me in session, then we really analyze that data and go over what does that mean. And it's really just running through it. The Sound Relationship House is what it is called through the Gottman Institute. So if you haven't seen that, go over to playtherapycommunity.com and you can get the show notes to this episode, and you could see the graphic that Gottman provides on this Sound Relationship House. So I'm going to describe it to you here, though. It is a house. It's like a little cartoon house, and there's 2 walls. And when you think about the importance of walls in a house, if your walls are weak or broken or cracked, then you have a really big problem in the house. You need to do some repairs right away, put some supports in there. So on this graphic, the two big things that's on the walls are trust and commitment. Those are really important things in a relationship. If trust and commitment are strained in a relationship, then you can really feel it, and it can make that sound relationship house not as strong. So in the therapy process, we target those areas through a series of interventions to help strengthen that. So I really like the metaphor of the plate, like if you're at a barbecue. One of an OT, occupational therapist, used this metaphor like in regards to working with children that are struggling with sensory issues, but I feel like it applies here too. So imagine that you have a plate and you're getting ready to go to a barbecue. Or actually you're at the barbecue with the plate, and you get a big piece of chicken on there, and somebody puts a piece of corn and beans, and you may even get a roll, and then potato salad. Before you know it, that plate starts to buckle. That's too much weight on that plate. Well, that's kind of the way this works. That relationship is the plate, and it starts to buckle. So what do? Well, we need a stronger plate for one. And then maybe we need to take some of that stuff off. Maybe we need to choose whether we want a hamburger or a chicken, or we need to do half portions on the beans or the potato salad. So in your relationship therapy, specifically that Gottman method, couples therapy, we start doing interventions to kind of take and heal some of that pain that has occurred. And sometimes the pain isn't necessarily based on just the current relationship. Sometimes people haven't healed things that happened years ago, whether it's in previous relationships or even in their childhood during the formative years. Because what we know about relationships is we take what we experienced as a child and the blueprints that were made of what a relationship is and what it isn't, and we then apply it to our relationships in adulthood. Well, sometimes those are really healthy, but sometimes they're not. So it can bring some dysfunction into the relationship that really needs to be explored. So it's not a matter of like if you had a really traumatic childhood and you weren't modeled good relationships, it doesn't mean that you're sentenced to, okay, you can't ever have good relationships because of your childhood. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that we need to look at that. We need to look at what things are in place, and we need to process that and kind of explore your relationship compared to what the data says about what a healthy relationship is. And then changes can be made, and trauma injuries can be healed. So that the interventions through the Gottman method are incredible. So that sound relationship house, the walls are trust and commitment. And a lot of times that goes hand in hand. And then as you look at the different areas of the house, these areas, many of them are kind of building up that plate, strengthening the relationship, but some of them are really kind of repairing the ruptures too. So it starts off on the very bottom floor. Build love maps. This, through the therapy, is addressed like helping them really kind of learn about each other's inner world. And you do that by asking open-ended questions. So in the therapy, I have a card deck with all these like interesting questions that couples probably haven't even like explored in years. So it gives them an opportunity to just kind of look into each other's world that isn't problem saturated. And it turns out to be pretty fun in most cases. Sometimes it can be triggering. Something can touch on a subject that is hurting in their relationship, but it's really neat. It's really seeking to understand that other person's world and really feel like, hey, somebody cares. My partner really cares about my dreams and my desires and my opinions on things. So I love that. That's really important. That's at that foundation level with the first floor. Build love maps. The next one is shared fondness and admiration. So that's the second story. And the fondness and admiration is, if you've listened to my previous episode on Gottman method couples therapy, you probably remember the 4 horsemen with criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Those are the 4 things that can be the demise of a relationship. Those are biggies. But that contempt, which is really putting down your partner, really presenting yourself as higher than the authority, talking down to, sometimes it looks like name calling, mockery. That one's the worst of them all. But this second story of the Sound Relationship House is the antidote for that 4 horsemen, that horseman of the 4 horsemen, which is contempt. So shared fondness and admiration, it's just, it's the process of just scanning your environment for things that you appreciate about your partner, just having that respect and that fondness and that genuine, I adore you. And I know that may sound a little bit cheesy, but that is really good stuff. It is something that is opposite of what I just described, putting people down, name calling, presenting as the authority. When you can share fondness and admiration, it can turn a situation around and make it not nearly as hurtful, or it can even take adverse situations and help the couple come together and strengthen them. So that shared fondness and admiration, we talk about different ways of interacting with your partner. The Gottman method has this metaphor, which I love. I ended up buying some fake money from Amazon and doing a little like a 4D metaphor with it. But it's called the relationship house, the relationship bank account. Sorry about that. And the relationship bank account, research shows that you need 5 positives to every 1 negative interaction in a relationship. If you have less than that, it strains the relationship. And the couples that ended in divorce, or if they weren't married, the relationship ended, they had the reverse of that. So when you have at least five positives to every negative, that shared fondness and admiration that, hey, I really like you and you really like me. You appreciate me. I feel affection. I feel respect by you. That one's really in place. Now, let's look at the third story. And this one, also, all of these really kind of use that concept of the relationship bank account. But this one is called Turning Towards. And this is literally and figuratively. Now, suppose that your partner comes home from work and you are doing dishes and you just you continue doing what you're doing and they say, hey, and you don't respond. That's not turning towards, that's turning away. Or suppose they say, hey, come here, I want to show you something funny on the TV. And then you're like, I don't want to see that. I don't even care. I don't even like that show. Or if they reach out their hand and then you pull away. All of those things are withdrawals from that relationship bank account, but it's not turning towards. So you literally want to move your body, turn towards. In child-parent relationship therapy, we call this having your toes and nose to the child. You want to express interest in your partner. I care. I matter. I'm important is what you want to foster in your partner. When you can do that, it makes those moments that are tough. It makes those moments that are maybe make or break, in terms of the environment, or if the relationship's really at a struggling point, it can make the relationship go either way. This one's a really important one. So Gottman refers to them as the sliding door moments, and they happen really quickly. And if someone makes a bid for connection, and a bid for connection is just really offering that connection, and if it's rejected and over, eventually they just kind of stop one or another, if you have too many bid for connection rejections, which that rhymes, then you're going to stop accepting bids. So all of those can be withdrawals from that relationship bank account. Okay, so let's move up to the fourth floor, and this is the positive perspective, and all of this is explored really clearly in that relationship checkup, so that when I meet with the couple, we have a really good idea of exactly what areas are healthy and what areas are unhealthy, so that when we do our work, we're strengthening those healthy areas and we are targeting those unhealthy areas to really make change as quickly as possible. So this positive perspective, this comes up in that relationship checkup as Gottman refers to it as a negative sentiment override. And that's just like, even in those positive or neutral moments, any little thing can cause the relationship to go into that negative. It can really sound like if somebody felt, say, left out. Well, they may remember the last 15 times in the relationship they felt left out, and how much they don't like their partner, and it just kind of spins into a spiral of negativity. And it may look like they have a chip on their shoulder. It may look like, hey, what's wrong with you? You have a little bit of an attitude. That's negative sentiment override. So that's a big target of the therapy, is to help pull the couple into positive sentiment overrides, so when the little storms come around, that they can weather them just fine. So really, when we're looking at this, that relationship bank account having way more deposits than withdrawals is important. You want to have a focus on having a healthy balance in that relationship bank account. You want to be relationship millionaires, even if you don't have much like real money. Okay, so the next one is usually what brings couples to me in many cases, and it's managing conflict. Now, what the research tells us is that healthy relationship absolutely has conflict. You don't want to not have conflict. Couples that don't have conflict, that are conflict avoidant, sometimes they are at risk for betrayals, going outside of the marriage for their frustrations and their things that they're not happy about in the relationship. So you want to have conflicts, but it's not whether you have conflict, it's how you have conflict. So what the way that they phrase it in the Gottman method couples therapy is, you want to start off with a really soft startup. Instead of saying, hey, you jerk, you never take out the garbage. You haven't taken out the garbage in years. I always do that. I'm the only one that does anything around here. Okay, so that may be a conflict about taking out the trash. And notice, like, even as I said that, I felt my chest kind of get tighter, and I felt, kind of getting a little bit of an attitude. But imagine if it were said in a different way. Say, a really gentle way, a soft startup. Hey, I was wondering if we could take turns taking out the trash. Do you think maybe you could take it out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I take it out on Mondays and Wednesdays? And really that gentle startup. And you'll want to add feelings in there. And, many of conflicts that couples have, sometimes they are about the trash, but sometimes they're about way deeper things. So whether it's about something small or something really huge, a soft startup can not only kind of predict how that issue is going to be handled in the relationship, but it can predict like the longevity of a relationship. That's how important it is. Too many harsh startups, big withdrawals in the relationship bank account, it can make you go relationship bankrupt. And then that's when a relationship can really be struggling to survive, if it does at all. And this is where really clearly those four horsemen, the criticism, the defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling really show themselves. So as I work with couples, there's this intervention through this Gottman method called the aftermath of a fight. And if a couple has a fight or a conflict during the week, many times I'm a little bit excited because I'm like, oh, yes, let's do this intervention so that you can learn and practice these new skills. But when they do that, sometimes they kind of fall right back into those 4 patterns of communication, the 4 horsemen that are unhealthy. So as they do that, we just gently pause and I say, I think I heard a little bit of criticism there. Let's back up and let's say that in a gentler way. And each one of those 4 horsemen has its own antidotes. So when you can really experience an interaction that does not include those 4 horsemen, that includes connection and respect and clarification and just that shared togetherness, then you have a very different experience. Now, one important thing about the Gottman method is there's a big focus put on the physiological state of the partners. So what that means is we use pulsometers in session. We have them, and when it goes to 100 beats per minute, then on their pulse, then we stop. We engage in calming and grounding techniques and help them get that pulse down. Now, why is that? Why do you want to interrupt when you're on a roll? Because when our pulse gets up, that's a big indicator that we are emotionally flooded. And when we're emotionally flooded, we react rather than respond. We say and do things that aren't helpful, that we wouldn't have said or done if we were in a calmer state. I love the thought of this because we experience it in session. Sometimes we have to do it over and over again. And then they can then kind of know what that feels like at home. They can take that break to say, okay, I feel flooded right now. We're flooded. Let's pause, go away, not go away and build your case about how, you're going to get back at this person, but go away and do something totally different. Take some deep breaths, ground yourself, whatever that may look like for you. Sometimes it's a couple taking just a brisk 30-minute walk or a shower or going writing in a journal or just engaging in something totally different, whatever it looks for that person. Then when they come back, then they can respond together rather than just react from their big emotions. But this part here, managing conflict, this is a little bit of a surprising statistic. Most of the conflict in relationships are perpetual. That means there's no solution. You have these 2 people come together, living together this one life, this shared life, and they're not going to agree on everything. Actually, they're not going to agree on most things. What the research says is 69% they're not going to agree on. So that's a lot. So what does that mean? That could really kind of look like a gridlock. It could be an area that one person's never going to like this person or this thing. And the other person definitely isn't going to think that way. So what do you do? So have you ever been, I know one time we were in Atlanta and we were stuck in traffic and I looked in the rearview mirror and there was an emergency vehicle kind of stuck in traffic too. And it couldn't even move. We were like in gridlock. And it was about 3 minutes. It had its siren on. Nobody could move. There wasn't any place to go. And that's kind of what it feels like when couples are in gridlock. It feels hopeless. It's like we don't know what to do. We just can't. I can't give on this issue. And I can't give on this issue, on both sides because they have their own values and, the individual part of the relationship. I love how Dr. Siegel puts the MWE. MWE. There's the me and me of each partner, but also there's the we. So the me may be so strong on some issues that it's hard to come to a we. So what do? You make sure you use that soften startup and accept the influence. Really listen to your partner. What are they wanting out of that? What is the deeper meaning for that? So that really means, seeking to understand before you seek to be understood, really wanting to know about that partner. That's a quote from Stephen Covey. I took his training years ago when I worked at Cape Canaveral Air Station. And it's great. I love Covey's stuff. He's died since then, but I think his teachings will go on forever. But you want to accept the influence of the partner, really seek to understand what's going on for them. Be sure to engage in that physiological soothing, that de-escalation of feeling flooded. And then help couples move into compromise. You don't want to do compromise too soon, though, because sometimes slower is faster. You need all of those things in place before you do compromise. You need the softened startup. You need the accepting influence. You need to be able to repair some of the hurts. And then the compromise is a little bit easier because the couples are able to go a little bit more into that vulnerable space, which is necessary for compromise, and help move them past those gridlock issues. Well, we're moving up the levels of the house. So let's look at that sixth floor. Make life dreams and aspirations come true. So this one is a biggie. We all have life dreams, and it may include fun and adventure, exploration, or it may be just dreams of, I know for me, I'm really excited to kind of get my book out there and publish it, and really just share those life dreams with each other. When you can share that and you can really explore the other person's world as this is important to you and I care about it and this is exciting, that really strengthens that plate in a big way. So the way that we do that in the Gottman couples therapy, we have a card deck for that too. They have the best card decks. And we go through, talk about their different dreams and what that means to them. Usually those pieces, we spend a lot of time on repairing hurts, and some couples come to me with betrayal, and some couples come to me with just poor communication patterns. Some couples come to me with intimacy issues. But regardless of what it is, that sharing their dreams and helping that come true for your partner, big stuff, big deposits into that relationship bank account. All right, so the last one, it's in the attic of the house. It's very tall. When I say tall, it's up there. It's very like it's the top. It's the cream of the crop. It's create shared meaning. So I just referenced Dr. Siegel, which I had a chance to see in Tampa, Florida recently. I was a little bit geeked out by, I guess starstruck is what I felt. I got a picture of him and I posted it on my Facebook page. I love his work. I've read all of his books. He's amazing. But he talks about that me and the we. So this create shared meaning really is the we. And he has a book on we as well. But it's through the use of metaphors and the narrative. What is the togetherness of them, their cross-cultural experience that they bring together to create their own culture? And when I use the culture, the word culture, I think about every family has its culture. What's okay, what's not. What one part of this, which there's also a card deck for, but I was a little surprised that this is so important, but now I can totally see how it is rituals of connection. Those things that we do over and over again. So for some couples, it may be, or in families, I do a lot of family therapy, and we talk about what's something that you do every year and you just kind of grow to kind of look forward to it, or it's like a ritual that you do. Oh, we say grace before dinner, or at birthdays, we always buy a Carvel cake. That's an ice cream store. Or at Christmases, we always open up one gift on Christmas Eve. Or when someone's sick, my mom always makes chicken soup or goes and gets orange juice for us, or lets me watch cartoons when I'm laying in bed. So whatever it is, that ritual connection brings them together. So creating that shared meaning that, okay, this is something we do together. This is a culture that we have together. You came from your culture. I came from my culture. We're honoring those cultures, those beliefs, those legacies individually, but we're bringing them together and creating something together. That's really important. So really, that's the entire sound relationship house. Remember the trust and commitment on both sides. Those are the walls. And then we go up from the bottom, build love maps. The next 4 is shared fondness and admiration. The next one, turning towards. The next one, the positive perspective. The next one, managing conflict. Next one, make life's dreams come true. And the very top one, create shared meaning. Well, I hope you learned something from this episode. I know the first time I heard about the Sound Relationship House, I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. So now I have it framed next to the couch in my therapy room, and I refer to it often. I use it a lot with, obviously couples, but I use it with parents. And I use it with individuals that may be struggling with some relationships in their family. So this is for couples relationships, but many pieces are true for child-parent relationships, for friendships, for siblings. Really connecting with that person, having that connection on each deep level is important. All right, so if you would like the show notes for this episode, just hop on playtherapycommunity.com. And I'm excited. I have some new things coming up that I'm going to tell you about, some new little courses and some opportunities to learn some more coming up, and I will share that with you in later episodes. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I can't tell you how much it means to me. It really feels like an honor. Oh, I would love to have you in our Facebook group. We have a closed Facebook group called Play Therapy Community. You just Google that in the groups area of Facebook. Hop on in there. We share information, resources. That one's for therapists. If you're a parent, there's Parenting in the Rain Facebook group community, and also I have a page. I have a Twitter and a Pinterest. I haven't really done much with that lately. My client load is really good, which I'm excited about right now. But right now I'm recording this at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. So I don't have a lot of time to post to Pinterest, but that's one of my future goals. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this. Until next time, take care.
To join our growing community for free, just go to playtherapycommunity.com and find us on Facebook too.
Thanks for listening to the Play Therapy Community Podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.